Welcome to the Legit Football NFL podcast. Brian McFadden, co-founder of Legit Football, here to preview Super Bowl 57. Only one game left from the 2022 NFL season. We have been here with you all season, first with 30 minutes of football, and now with the Legit Football NFL podcast. It has all led to this. I'm 10-2 picking playoff teams. I'm still not entirely sure who I'm picking for the Super Bowl, but the good news is, as always, I do not have to do it alone. Let's bring in first Kevin Phillip Fox, my new partner in crime, co-host of the Legit Football NFL podcast. It's a bittersweet moment, Kevin, because this is the last game until September, but it is the biggest game of all.
Yeah, Brian, it doesn't get any better than this, man. When you look at Super Bowl matchups, you want close games, you want good games, you want excitement, you want fireworks, and I don't think there's any way we don't get that from these two teams. So as bittersweet as it is, let's go in there and do what we do best. Let's preview some football, Brian.
I know I talked about during the conference championship previews how hard it was to pick those games, and I was parsing everything I could. Got them both right, gotta say. Picked the Chiefs and the Eagles.
Beast.
This game is so much harder. There's so much to dissect. If you just look at metrics, it looks obvious. But
right,
when you have Patrick Mahomes,
exactly,
Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid on the other side, nothing is obvious. So let's bring in more help. Let's bring Anthony Wehner, our producer. Let's bring him from behind the scenes.
Hey,
he always relishes when he gets to be in front of the camera. Final game of the year, Anthony, had to have you join us to contribute. How are you feeling as we are 2 days away from Super Bowl 57?
I feel like the season just started. I feel like we just made our preseason predictions.
Yeah.
And it's just to see everything come together is really exciting. I know there's only one game left and we have to wait longer. But offseason's always exciting. But this Super Bowl, these two teams, this matchup is going to be incredible, and I'm really excited.
Let's quickly rehash what those preseason picks were. So I had, Kevin, you'll like this. I had the Buffalo Bills beating the Los Angeles Rams in the Super Bowl. I actually got I got 6 of the 7 AFC teams correct. Like, I picked the Dolphins to make it. I picked the Broncos to miss. I didn't know it was going to turn out the way it did. But man, the Rams could not have been more wrong. Didn't give the Chiefs enough credit. I picked the Chargers to win that division, but we forgot that Patrick Mahomes is otherworldly. Kevin, who did you pick? Did you have a preseason pick for the big game before the season started?
Yeah, you can guess who my AFC pick was. That was easy. I really thought it was the year. Next year, right? The script leaked. Bills are winning the Super Bowl next year. But for this year, yeah, I had picked. I believe I picked Bills Packers. Yeah, the NFC side didn't age so great. I don't know what's up with, that team. That'll be fun to break down this offseason, but Bills Packers was my preseason pick.
Anthony, how about you?
I had the Bills and the Buccaneers just because that Buccaneers team coming back, like it was like the whole roster came back after that amazing season they had last season. I thought they were going to do it. I thought Tom Brady was going to get his last Super Bowl before he retires. That didn't happen. And also the Bills, lost in the playoffs. So
at least you picked 2 playoff teams. Both Kevin and I picked teams representing the NFC that didn't even make the playoffs. At least the Packers were one game out. I picked a team who was basically out of it by like week 6.
Injuries, though, you can. I mean, it's fair. That's not a crazy pick in hindsight. It's not like Demon not picking the Chiefs to go to the playoffs. That's something we need to continue to remind people about.
I tried to get Rich on this, and Takedo, going to put him in. He's lurking in the chat. Takedo Luna, who originally came to us because he is a follower of Rich on TikTok. I tried to get him on this show. Rich is a busy guy. But yes, I would have reminded him 17 times that the team that's representing the AFC, he picked to not even make it. But here we are. We've got the Kansas City Chiefs, their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. They had went to 5 straight AFC championship games. I think the question of a dynasty is already done.
Oh.
I guess we can discuss they have to win the Super Bowls to become a dynasty, but I'm convinced they're there. On the other side, the Philadelphia Eagles, who were in this place 5 years ago and won against the GOAT, Tom Brady, and the Patriots in that amazing Super Bowl, Philly special, Nick Foles, remember him? We're going to break this game down. We do not have specific segments ironed out, so it'll be a little organic. You guys know I've got the advanced metrics ready. I've got DVOA. I've got PFF. We're going to stick to that side of it.
Man after my own heart.
But we have to remember, Mahomes has a certain magic that metrics just cannot account for. So I am leaning one way, but I can be convinced. So I'm hoping, we have to make picks. So we're going to wait to the very end of the show.
Definitely.
I'm hoping I get some clarity here. But my gut is disagreeing with my mind. So we'll get to that. First thoughts, though. First thoughts with how we got here. Maybe a reflection on the NFL season, Kevin. How do you feel as we get close to putting a bow on this season?
Yeah, Brian, I'm really glad that you brought up the heart and mind debate, because I don't know if I can think of a bigger game that had such a disparity between the two, but I'm in exactly the same boat that you're in. As I've mentioned on this podcast before, I'm a bit of a degenerate gambler. So I've been, throwing bones down left and right, and pretty much for the 10 or 11 days leading up to the preview from the championships, I was like, I know who I'm picking. This is easy. I know who I'm picking, and I felt good about it. And a couple days ago, this sinking feeling started setting in, like, ooh, but hold on. You know what I mean?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The sinking feeling. And I was like, hold on. This is not easy. And the intangibles need to be addressed in this game. And that's something I'm very eager to touch on this preview show. So I'll leave you with that for my little teaser for like what I'm thinking. As far as a bow on the season, I've said it before on this podcast. I'll say it again. Fantastic NFL season. We're in a fantastic place. It's never been more exciting to be a football fan. It's never been more exciting to be a fan of an AFC East team. It's never been more exciting to be a fan of the Lions. So we're some happy guys on this podcast, and we're going to send that out through our microphones into your ears today on this beautiful Friday before the Super Bowl.
It's never been a better time to be a fan of the NFL. I mean, they have truly achieved their goal of making this a year-round thing. We might be wrapping a bow on the season, but that just means we get to get into free agency and draft prospects.
Just
and
as exciting.
Aaron Rodgers coming out of his darkness retreats. I mean, there's just so much juice to this. Whoever wrote the script for this season, they should give a promotion to, because I'm down.
Emmy, Oscar.
Anthony, your thoughts, final thoughts on the 2022 season, and then we will jump into the big game.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams kind of came from the bottom and kind of showed that they're for real. The Lions
started from the bottom. Now they're here.
Now they're here.
I just came up with that. No one's ever said that before.
The Jacksonville Jaguars had the first overall pick last year, and they made playoffs. So we saw a lot of movement. Dan Campbell having a winning season after having a losing one. It's looking good around the league for the underdogs, and I really like a good story. And I think that the Jaguars, and even the Jets, having the defense that they had, almost making playoffs. If it wasn't for, Breece Hall, could have easily gotten Rookie of the Year. But he got hurt. If that wouldn't have happened, the Jets would have had a different season. And all this stuff happened.
That's a well set up team.
Yeah. All of these underdog, like I can see the Jets in the playoffs now. Rich, you're welcome. And I just think that this season really showed up. I think we're going to see different teams in the Super Bowl next year. It's not going to be the Chiefs and Eagles. It's going to be something brand new. And I'm really excited to find out.
So you're exactly right that this is a season of the underdog, and I think that parity in the NFL was never more on display. However, we got to the 2 number 1 seeds playing for the Super Bowl, so it's funny. Yeah. It's like in a season where it was it could have gone to so many different teams, and there were some great stories across. I mean, the Giants, Brian Daboll won Coach of the Year last night. Not only did they make the playoffs when no one gave them a shot, but they won a playoff game after all of that. The Lions, the team from Hard Knocks, we still had the 2 best teams. So it's like the best of both worlds. We got the parity. We got the great underdog stories. But at the end of the day, it's still the 2 best teams playing in the Super Bowl. Let's not beat around the bush anymore. Let's start diving into this game. Like I said, I don't have a predetermined way that we're going to attack this. I've got metrics ready. We've got narratives ready. We've got storylines. We'll start with you on this, Kevin. Tell us who you're leaning and why. We won't make you commit to a pick yet, but you talked about how you've kind of shifted a little. Let's start there. I'll get Anthony's thoughts, my thoughts, and then we'll start diving into some numbers.
Yeah, so you can call this an emotional hedge. I'm not going to do a literal hedge, but there's an emotional hedge happening where I think, like I said, the early money was on Philly for me, and I was feeling really confident about it. The metrics, the everything that they've been doing all year, the pass rush. There's just so much there that I'm sure we're going to get into. And pass rush is a key figure of this matchup. And I covered that on the
Maybe the
Legit
key.
Football TikTok. That was a headline a couple of days ago where we were previewing the game. Couple hampered quarterbacks. But you know what? I'm just here to tell you I'm leaning Chiefs, given the fact that I can't account for Andy Reid having been there so many times. Patrick Mahomes, this is his second MVP year. This is his third Super Bowl appearance in 5 seasons as a starter, maybe 6. He's an animal. He does what he does. There's variables that you can't account for. And he's got it. He's got the thing. And Kelsey, I'm leaning Chiefs based on those variables, but to quote a great podcast host, I can be swayed. So I'm excited to hear the rest of this conversation. Anthony, what you got for us?
So I want to lean Chiefs, and I liked your point that they've been there before. And it's like an opening act opening up for the main event. The opening act's not going to be as good. The main event's done it for years, and they're ready for it, and it's going to be a better show. And I think that you can compare that to football, where Kansas City's been there, they've seen that stage, they're ready for it. They've kind of like, they know the ropes, and the Eagles are like, okay, well, we kind of made it, like we've made it, guys. Let's like try our best, let's try our hardest. And the Chiefs are like, okay, we've seen this before, let's get it done. And I think that could mean a lot, especially with Andy Reid being the kind of coach he is. I think that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they're going to take it over on offense. I think it's really going to come down to the defense on Kansas City's side, because the Eagles' offense can easily break through that. It's going to be competitive, but I'm leaning Chiefs.
So, not surprising, since metrics are such a big part of what I do, that I have been leaning Eagles since this matchup first came. If you just look at metrics, it's actually a lot more clear than, let's say, KC Cincinnati was, or even Philly San Francisco, that if you're just looking at advanced metrics without any of the storylines, without any of the players in mind on the Kansas City side, without the coaching, that the Eagles have the edge. But like you, Kevin, there's an emotional part it's like this little voice that Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
Patrick Mahomes.
You can't unhear that voice.
Patrick Mahomes, and it's just like,
see what we've seen.
So we all know where we're leaning. Let's go ahead and dive into as much as we can about the game, and then we will have solidified picks that we have to stick to by the end of this show. So, Anthony, you mentioned Eagles defense or Eagles offense versus Chiefs defense. I think that's going to be a particularly key matchup here. So let's start there. I've got some DVOA numbers from Football Outsiders broken up by week, because I love that they have this built up. It is a preview that they did on there, so I'll go ahead and give footballoutsiders.com the plug. You can go to their Super Bowl preview and read these metrics that I'm about to read. The Eagles offense by week, and you're going to see some patterns here. From weeks 1 through week 10, number 3 in pass offense. This is DVOA. Once again, if you guys aren't familiar with DVOA, it's defense adjusted value over average. It's meant to assign how good a team is in a particular year or over a particular period of time against what an average NFL team would be, either on a unit, offense, defense, offensive line, defensive line, or a team as a whole. So 3rd in pass offense, weeks 1 through 10, and 3rd in rush offense, weeks 1 through 10. So right off the bat, just insanely balanced. Weeks 11 through 12, and by the way, they did parse out weeks 16 through 17. Those are the 2 weeks Hurts missed, and that's important, because I don't think everybody can point to, they played Dallas at loud for. I want to take those 2 weeks out. They have been a different team with Hurts, even after the injury when he came back, and Hurts hasn't been at 100%. The team plays better when he's in. We have to account for that. So right. Taking weeks 16 and 17 out, weeks 11 through 21, so that includes the playoffs, 16th in pass, DVOA, 1st in run. So they've had a noticeable drop-off in pass, but the run game has got even better. Let's look at Chiefs defense. Weeks 1 through 7, 27th in pass DVOA, 11th in run DVOA. And this, by the way, I feel like is a Chiefs pattern. Weeks 9 through 21, 9th in pass DVOA. I feel like every year this Spagnuolo defense for KC just finds ways to get better and better. This year in particular, they're starting so many rookies that makes sense. And that's a good sign that the rookies are progressing. But 9th in pass DVOA through week 21. So this is not a team that early in the season, you can pass on the Chiefs. That's not necessarily true. We saw how they were able to limit Joe Burrow and the Bengals last week.
Yeah.
11th in run defense, weeks 1 through 7. 22nd in run defense, weeks 9 through 21. So already it seems like the difference there is the number 1 Eagles run offense against the 22nd ranked Chiefs defense. Anthony, I'll let you start with this. We're going to go through each of these parsed metrics. Get your reactions, and then we can decide if it sways us at all.
Yeah. I think there's a big improvement on the Kansas City defense, and that's because of the Bengals game. When I was watching that game, I heard the commentators mention Spags this, Spags that, Spag is doing this right, Spags is doing this right. And I'm like, wow, this defense is looking good. He's calling the right plays. If they can have that kind of defense and call those kind of plays like they did against the Bengals, that's how you're stopping the Eagles offense. And I think that he's really he's playing postseason football effectively. And I think if they do that against the Eagles, they're going to be able to slow them down, not stop them, but they're going to be able to slow them down. It'll come down to the end, and then it's going to be like, what play do we call? Cover 4 has been working against Hurts this whole time. Let's play that. Or, a blitz. Maybe you're stopping the run. You're going to keep stopping the run. Going to open up that pass. You're going to know exactly what to do. And he always knows what to do. He knows what kind of adjustments to make. If you can make those adjustments like he did against the Bengals, that's how you're going to stop the Eagles offense.
I remember thinking, Kevin, in the AFC Championship game, L'Jarius Sneed went out, I think, on the first drive and didn't come. I was like, oh, crap. So L'Jarius Sneed has actually been like a top 8 cornerback in the NFL. What an amazing season. They needed that with all the young talent they have in the secondary. He goes out. They still beat the Bengals. And I think that's a testament not only to the development of the rookies, but of Spagnuolo as a play caller. I'm with Anthony there. But how do these metrics influence you?
Yeah, I think you said it best right there when you said development of the rookies. I've been, pretty much early in fantasy. It feels like almost every year when you got a receiver playing the Chiefs, you stream them. It's like it's a matchup to target. Because it feels like that defense is always hemorrhaging yards through the air. But players like Trent McDuffie coming up and like getting better and like showing those improvements. Like I'm pretty sure he had a decent game against Cincinnati. And then you got L'Jarius Sneed, who's potentially like you said, top 8. I think that if that secondary can show up the way that they've been showing up, that's a huge feather in the cap of the team because Chris Jones is going to be creating that interior pressure. He's been doing it all playoffs. He's been wreaking havoc. I'm definitely extremely excited to see what he's got in store for this game. He's kind of been one of like the superheroes of the playoffs so far. So matchups like that, and then you have some nice coverage linebackers. Willie Gay has been doing a good job pass coverage. So it'll be really interesting to see if Philly can attack them through the air because we already know that they're going to get theirs on the ground. I think Hurts is going to have a decent game on the ground. Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, the 3-headed monster. I've said it a million times. I don't think really any of them, maybe Miles, is truly a special running back, but they're all productive in that system. It's very kind of Shanahan-esque that somehow they managed to get production from so many guys, and it doesn't matter who's getting the ball. They're going to be getting a chunk gain of 4 to 6 yards. So if Philly can do that and keep Mahomes on the sidelines with long, sustained rushing drives, I think that is a formula that Sirianni and Hurts are going to want to lean into.
So let's look at some PFF grades now with these units that we're talking about. Their safeties are veterans, at least. You've got Justin Reed, fourth-year player, 71.9, 23rd out of safeties, respectable. Juan Thornhill, drafted in 2019, so this is his 4th year, 71.8, respectable.
That's decent. Yeah.
L'Jarius Sneed, 10th in PFF, 78.4 at cornerback. You got 2 rookies, Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson. McDuffie with a 73.5. That's on the season, so which is impressive. And a lot of that has been towards the end of the season, so he's been better as the year went on. Jalen Watson, 59.6, but I feel like he had an interception, I think, against the Bills, right? And he one of the playoff games. Yeah, he had an interception. And even their backup safety, Brian Cook, He tipped the pass that
Right.
was intercepted, I think, by McDuffie in the AFC Championship game. So you have these young players. They are young, and they're going to be having to go up against A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, but they just went up against Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, so it feels like that's actually not a big jump, and they've done that.
Feels like Watson is the liability there if you were going to look at any of those matchups to attack. I mean, if you can isolate A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith on Watson, that feels like a plus for Philly.
Which should only happen if you've got them in a nickel or dime coverage,
Right.
because he is their third cornerback. You got McDuffie and Snead starting. That's why one of the many reasons having Snead back for this game, and he was cleared. We should say that he will be starting in this game. He says he's at 110%,
Nice.
which technically is impossible. He can't be more than 100%, but I know why they say that. Let's look at the rest of the Chiefs' defense. Nick Bolton, 74.7, 15th at linebacker. But I feel like he has been especially good against the run. His weakness is more in coverage, which is something to monitor maybe with when it comes to Dallas Goedert. But he needs to excel. He needs to be able to shut this number one run defense down. Frank Clark, Carlos Dunlap, they've got some solid edge rushers, but not spectacular. They're 65.7 and 67.1 PFF. And then, of course, Chris Jones, who is number one, 92.6 PFF grade, better than even Aaron Donald in the interior.
He's a monster.
You can say all you want about Mahomes and the Magic, and that's viable. But without Chris Jones, they don't beat Cincinnati in that
Absolutely.
AFC Championship game.
Right.
However, let's talk about the difference in who Chris Jones had to go up against in the Bengals with, what did you call it, 1.5 starting offensive linemen, Kevin, against the best offensive line in football, and maybe one of the best offensive lines over the past 10 years. You got Jordan Mailata, 80 grade, 10th at left tackle. You've got Landon Dickerson, 70.9, 16th, but he is, I believe, second or third in pass blocking win rate for left guards. Travis Kelce, 88.9, all-pro, second best PFF graded center. You got Isaac Samalo, who's a veteran, 73, ninth best right guard, and Lane Johnson, who is probably the best right tackle in the game at 84.4. There's no weaknesses there, no true weaknesses. And is that enough to mitigate Chris Jones? So let me go through the rest of the PFF grades, and then we'll go through one more time, and then we'll switch it. We'll do Eagles defense, Chiefs offense. We're trying to parse everything. This might be a little bit of a long show, but we have to dive in.
If it's not an hour and a half, we failed.
Yes, agreed. So we talked about the wide receivers. A.J. Brown, 86.7. That's number 6 amongst all wide receivers in the NFL. Devontae Smith, 80.3 at 16th. So you've got 2 wide receivers with 80-plus grades. Dallas Goedert, 77.7. That's good for number 4 tight end in the NFL. And, of course, quarterback, Jalen Hurts, 84.8, which is 5th. Now, the other side of the ball has number 1, so we need to keep that in mind. Miles Sanders, 73.6. It's respectable, 27th. But they don't need a stud running back. Their system, we've seen Kenneth Gainwell has been their best running back in the playoffs, I think. And you still got Boston Scott, who's capable of making plays as well. Kevin, we'll start with you, go back to Anthony, and then we'll cycle back to the other units.
Yeah, there's one thought that I had that I haven't yet had over the past couple weeks that is kind of now percolating in my brain as like a potential X factor in this chess matchup. And that is going to be how much Philadelphia can convince Kansas City with their personnel to stay in nickel and dime, because nickel and dime historically is easier to run against. You get lighter boxes that way. So they have the threat of passing the ball. They have Goddard. They have A.J. Brown. They have Devontae Smith. Quez Watkins has done a thing or two this season. You know, he's a burner.
He can make plays. He doesn't need
can.
to. He could break something over the top.
So if Philly can do enough with that offensive line and Goddard as a blocker and A.J. Brown's size as a blocker to convince Kansas City to stay in lighter personnel packages, nickel and dime, have those weaker defenders on the field, which is already a plus matchup in that sense, then they get lighter boxes and they have those schemes and they have that rushing quarterback. That's kind of an X factor, I think. I think Sirianni's going to want to do as much as he can to keep Reed in those lighter packages, and Reed might have to double down and say, you know what, you throw paper, I'll throw scissors, and then we might need to see, like you said, Brian, a big pass coverage game from the Chiefs linebackers, which we haven't seen a lot of from rookie Nick Bolton. So that's going to be
second year. He's actually a rookie last year. This is
Second
second
year.
year. Yeah.
That's right. We haven't seen as much of that outstanding pass coverage from him. So it will be really interesting to track that the personnel packages when Philly has the ball, because that's now something that's sort of like a smoking gun for me in the deciding factor between these two teams. That's going to be a really interesting part of the match.
You actually bring up a very, very fantastic point, and something I wanted to get to at some point in this show, and that is, how do you get the Chiefs to stay in more nickel and dime coverages? It's only going to be if you're successful passing the ball deep. And if there's one thing we've seen for sure that has affected Jalen Hurts since he came back from his injury, and we even saw it in the Niners game, his accuracy in general, but especially on deep balls, has not been what it was. There are times this year where teams would try to do that. They would stack the box to stop this Eagles run defense, and Hurts would throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's going to need to do that. It wouldn't surprise me if Spagnuolo makes them prove that early and tries to stack the box from the start, saying, okay, either Hurts, you're going to have to beat us deep, or maybe beat us with your legs, which he also hasn't been as good at since he came back from his injury.
Right.
I think that's the approach that KC should take to start. Like, hey, okay, we're gonna make you prove that your shoulder's 100%. We're gonna make you prove that you can beat us deep, as opposed to let's start at deep and then come forward. No, I would say start forward, stop the run first, because that's the one thing to me that's a question, Anthony, is Hurts he's great, inspired, great leader. We know what his ceiling is. He hasn't been at his ceiling. If he can't hit those deep passes, KC doesn't need to worry so much about coverage.
Absolutely. And I compared in a show we did, I think 2 weeks ago, I compared AJ Brown to one Calvin Johnson. Just because of the fact that if Jalen Hurts gets that ball out to him, he finds a way to catch it. And I think that that's going to be a lot in that deep pass game, because he's going to find a way. Even if Jalen Hurts is a little inaccurate, he's going to find a way to get it to AJ Brown, maybe even get it into the end zone. That's going to force the Chiefs to play nickel or dime, and that's going to open up that run game. And with the run game, we saw in the championship, they depended on it. They ran I think all 3 running backs got a touchdown, didn't they? Or I think Miles Sanders got 2.
And Hurts too.
Yeah, I don't think Gainwell got in the end zone, but he had some chunk runs.
And when you have 3 running backs who are consistent and you have the ability to open that run game up, I mean, you run first with Gainwell, you hit a third down with Boston Scott, and then you get into the end zone with Miles Sanders. Like, that's a good run game because you have 3 dependable running backs, and you're able to do that. If your pass game gets shut down, you're able to use your run, and I think that's going to be on Philadelphia's side.
And the Niners had the best run defense going into that game,
right?
And it didn't matter. They slowed down the Eagles' rush. You know, we've seen the Eagles rush for 200. I think they even had a game with 300 yards this season. They didn't get to that, but they were still effective. They were still getting enough to move the ball. They were still getting enough to get in the end zone. There were a couple big touchdown runs where all it took was one player being out of position. I can think about Nick Bosa going in on that read option, and then I think it was the second Miles Sanders touchdown where he's just wide open to the right. This is where it's going to come down to it. Another one where Dre Greenlaw took the inside route instead of the outside route, and there was a huge hole. That was Sanders' first touchdown.
It's like gap integrity. It's like
so even if the Chiefs do stay in like 8-man boxes, it still might not matter.
Sound.
You need to tackle. But it definitely makes the game closer. If Hurts hits those deep balls, then you're really kind of screwed, because if you cannot stop either thing, then this game might not end up being as close as we think, unless Mahomes becomes superhuman, which is certainly capable of.
And I think I'm all in on an early passing attack from Philadelphia. I think you've got me fully convinced, Brian, that Philadelphia is going to come out and air it out. Maybe on the first play, we might see a 60-yard AJ Brown. You know, what's this famous saying? You throw it deep, then there's 3 things that can happen, and 2 of them are good. Right. I think we might see that scenario play itself out. And Anthony, if your call is right and AJ Brown is Megatron, then maybe we'll see somebody get mossed. on the first play of the Super Bowl. That might be a hot take. I don't know. Maybe we should run the tape back after that happens.
I do want to bring up the way that the Eagles started against the 49ers in the championship game, because they were slow to start. And if they play like that starting against the Chiefs, they're going to be down 21 points and not know what to do. And so they do have to come out passing. They have to come out trying to score. They can't be slow like they were against the 49ers. They lucked out with Brock Purdy getting hurt. They lucked out with that offense not being able to score points. They're not going to luck out against Kansas City because they will find a way to score. And so I do think that they need to come out swinging, and they need to come out swinging hard.
I think I agree on one condition. It all depends on how Hurts looks in practice, because here's why. I think the strategy, if Hurts is 100%, absolutely agree. They need to test them deep, early, and often for two reasons. One, to show that this is going to be a threat, and two, to try to get them in those lighter boxes so that the run game works. However, you're seeing him in practice all week. You know that his shoulder issues has affected his accuracy. If he's not 100%, you could be giving the Chiefs valuable information very early on. If he misses those throws, you're telling the Chiefs, Hurts isn't there, keep stacking the box. So it's almost like if you know Hurts, and this could be informative, guys, if we're watching and they start off running the ball early, it could be a strategy, but it could also be protecting Hurts and kind of keeping that part of his game a little bit of a mystery to the Chiefs defense, because you're still wondering, oh, does Hurts have it in him? I don't know. They haven't tried yet. If you start the game off and you try 2 or 3 deep balls and he misses all of them, that tells you, okay, we don't have to worry about it as much. So I think it would be interesting to see. I think if he's 100%, I agree. They should threaten him deep right off the bat.
I think that's a great point, and I think the other way to sort of throw that same strategy, but with a different, spin on it, is you got to get one of your rack guys. You got to get AJ, Devontae, or Quez a bubble screen early, or a smoke screen, or a jailbreak screen. Because then you're
or even
right,
just AJ Brown or Devontae Smith on a slant. AJ Brown in particular, how many times has he caught a slant and run another 40 yards because nobody can tackle him?
Something that's hot, like quick, and then boom, Hurts. You're right. The liability potentially of his, inaccuracy down the field is masked, but also you have the chance to prove to them, like, we're going to throw the ball in this game. So that's an interesting wrinkle that I didn't consider. So that's something that's a fun one too. Like, quick passing could be the other best friend to get to attack those stacked boxes.
So let's switch units. Let's put the Chiefs on offense, which is really where their X factor comes in, because they've got maybe the best tight end ever to play the game, certainly in
Correct.
the conversation. At least the most talented, if not eventually the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. One of the best coaches to ever coach the game.
Yeah.
This is the X factor for Kansas City, where even if their defense does have issues against Philadelphia, it might not matter because Mahomes can do some magical things. All right, so the Chiefs offense, weeks 1 through 7, no surprise here, far and away number 1 pass rank offense. 17th in run DVOA. Weeks 9 through 21, basically the same. They're 3rd in pass offense, but there's not a drop. It's 43.2% to 39.4%. So we can't really call that a drop in effectiveness. If for no other reason, then their run offense got better. They went from 17th overall DVOA weeks 1 through 7 to 11th. And I think a lot of that has to do with the emergence of Isaiah Pacheco and his effectiveness as a runner. Looking at the Eagles defense, weeks 1 through 10, it's actually interesting. They split it up into a couple different segments here. Weeks 1 through 10, number 1 pass defense by DVOA, number 29 run defense. Everybody said, oh, you can run on the Eagles.
That's right.
Starting in week 11, number 7 in pass defense. We have to remember Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was out for a big portion of that. And 10th in run defense since week 11. 10th in run DVOA. They did a few things there. One, Jordan Davis, rookie, started playing better. They signed Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh as rotational players in the middle there. They did a concerted effort to really focus on interior run defense. And throughout the playoffs, if you take out the NFC Championship game, which they were basically, Christian McCaffrey was taking snaps. So you just take that out, they're still 13th in run defense, 7th in pass offense. So I think this narrative around, that's their weakness, you can hit them up the middle, it's not as big a weakness as at least it was in the first 10 weeks of the season. Anthony, I'll let you start on this one, and then we'll We'll get the thoughts, then we'll dive into PFF.
So the Chiefs offense, and Patrick Mahomes got MVP for a reason. He can make plays anytime. If the pass rush is too much, he either gets the ball out or avoids it. And I mean, how many times Mahomes been sacked? He's not the most sacked quarterback at all. He knows how to move around the pocket.
Very rarely gets sacked, actually.
Right. And yeah, you can credit the offensive line and the blocking that Travis Kelce can do, but you have to respect his legs because if you watch him in the pocket, his legs are always moving. His footwork is incredible. Probably the best footwork I've seen in a long time because he knows how to work the pocket. He knows how to really get in a position to pass the ball or even just run for a first down, put that ball out and move the chains. And I think that that's very important with that Kansas City offense is that ability that Mahomes has. I think that's a big X factor. And Travis Kelce, even if he's not open, he's a big dude. He can get that ball. He's like
you have to account for him. Even if he's not, you have to account for him. Yeah. You have to try to have bracket coverage. You have to double him when you can. Whether he's getting the ball or not, he will affect the game.
Absolutely. I mean, he's like a safety net. If he doesn't know what to do, give it to Kelce. Yeah. And he's easy to see out there, and Mahomes knows it. And I think that he's always prepared. He's always like, all right, so I'm gonna do this play. If no one's open, I'm gonna give it to Travis. And I think that that's in his mind because we see it so often. We see it so often in the red zone, and we see Mahomes making plays that a lot of quarterbacks just can't make with his sidearm throws and his no-look passes. And I think that Eagles defense is going to have to account for every aspect of that offense, including the run game, with Pacheco kind of rising. I know he's a little young to be in the Super Bowl, so that pressure might be a little tough on him. But the offensive line, I think, is going to protect him and allow him to get through the middle and break that Eagles rush defense. I mean, I can see both scenarios. I can see a successful run game and a successful pass game just because of that Eagles defense. They're mediocre, but they're not awful, but they're also not the best.
I wouldn't call them mediocre.
I think they're pretty good. I think
they're a top 5 defense
compared to the Chiefs offense.
Compared to everybody's not as good compared to the Chiefs offense.
Right, yeah.
Kevin, here's one more metric that's actually interesting. So we talked about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who was a cornerback with the Saints, but has played primarily safety with Philadelphia. Week 17 through 21. So when he came back, he missed about 5 games with an injury. I think it was like a lacerated kidney or something crazy like that. Back up to second in pass defense DVOA for the Eagles. So just putting him in there makes quite the difference.
He always had kind of like that ball hawking skill. He's a good like center field type player. I think he's going to be a big X factor in this game, and the fact that he was able to elevate their defense to that level is not at all surprising. To me, when the Chiefs have the ball, the number one thing that I'm looking at is the trenches. I just think that Philadelphia has been so lethal in the trenches this year on defense. 4 players with 11 sacks. Is that right? That's insane.
12. 4 players with 12 or more if you include the playoffs.
Insane. Like like you want to have one guy with 12. 2 is like woohoo party. Like they're both going Pro Bowl. They're both going all pro. 4. That's double great. Like that's insane. And I think.
And then you have the back. That's what I'm saying. Like. You have Slay and Bradbury.
Yeah.
Avonte Maddox, actually, there was a stat from Next Gen Stats on Twitter that he's like got one of the highest or lowest passer ratings when targeted. He's the 3rd cornerback. And then you add Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as in the backfield. It's like where do you attack them?
It's unreal. And I think the same way that I look at Chris Jones as the X factor on the defensive line when Philadelphia has the ball, I look at Hassan Reddick in this matchup. The same way that Chris Jones almost single-handedly wrecked the Bengals game plan, I think Hassan Reddick has the potential to wreck whatever the Chiefs want to do because he's getting off that edge so quickly. And that's one of the areas where you can attack the Chiefs offensive line. I know we're getting into PFF in a second, but I would wager that the right tackle is probably on the worst side of their offensive line. I believe they're pretty solid in the interior and they have a really great left tackle. But I think Hassan Reddick, they might play some matchup chess and try to get him isolated against one of their weaker pass rushers. And then if you have to keep Kelce in the chip, you're losing a little bit of extra juice in the passing game. However, Kelce does do the leak play. That's where they can get him back. That's the counter punch to that is you leave Kelsey in the chip, and then he just turns around and catches the ball. It happens all the time. Everybody's like, why is Kelsey so open? Because he wasn't running a route. He was blocking, and then he turned around and the ball was in his chest. It's just something that it's a wrinkle that Kansas City has that's unguardable. So that's something that I'm watching big time in this matchup.
All right, so let's dive into the PFF grades for these units: Eagles defense, Chiefs offense. We'll start on the Chiefs side. We'll go offense to defense this time.
Cool.
So we'll go ahead and start with the biggest X factor. Patrick Mahomes, 91.5 PFF grade. Actually rates third in QB rating, but like I said, there's some magic that just cannot be accounted for in advanced metrics. Travis Kelce, 91.2, number one tight end by far. Remember, we had 77.7 for Goddard as the fourth tight end. 3 spots higher, you go to 91.2 Travis Kelce. It's not a small difference there. Kelce is just such a. I mean, like I said, he could be, and he makes there is an argument for him being the best tight end ever to play the game. That's how much of an impact he has. There was a stat that his playoff statistics are basically an entire season's worth. Like something like 127 catches for 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's got a season's worth of production just in the playoffs. Let's talk about their offensive line. They do have, if there's one center maybe better rated than Jason Kelce for the Eagles, it is Creed Humphrey for the Chiefs. So that is their absolute strength is up the middle. 89.9, number one rated PFF center. You've got Joe Thuney, who is a number 6, 77.6 left guard. Trey Smith, 11th, 72.5. This is not a slouch of an offensive line either. At right
great
guard,
interior.
Orlando Brown Jr., 75.7, 18th, solid left tackle. They're big. They do have one glaring weakness, and that is right tackle with Wiley, who is a 61.4, 63rd out of 84 qualifying tackles. But they also run a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, which matters for a few reasons. One, obviously that can assist in some of the blocking deficiencies of a guy like Wiley, but it also will change what defense the Eagles play. It'll change their personnel package. If they are multiple tight ends, they can't run out more defensive backs. They're going to have to stay in more of a base coverage, more linebackers. So let's jump to that side of the ball, assuming that they're playing base. Of course, the defensive line is the strength. Hassan Reddick, 86.2, 9th best edge rusher. You've got Javon Hargrave, 79.9, 12th best. Fletcher Cox, 59.2, but Cox is still able to make plays. He's in that group. Brandon Graham isn't even on here because he's rotational, but his PFF grade is like in the mid-80s.
That's crazy.
As a guy who only plays like 20 snaps a game. So they put him in just on pass rushing downs, and he was getting past Trent Williams last game. Brandon Graham at 33, 34 years old, the fact that he can produce at a high level, and he just has to do it for 20 snaps, so you don't have to worry about him getting worn out. Moving to the defensive backs, James Bradbury and Darius Slay both have 73.9 grades, which I think is interesting, which is good for 18th, but to have 2 of those guys right there. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, 67.8. Their one weakness is in their other safety position with Marcus Epps at 56.3.
Yeah.
But if you're getting pass rush and all the rest of your secondary is good, that masks that a lot. And TJ Edwards, 81.1, 7th best linebacker on PFF, and Kazir White, 65.5, respectable as the other linebacker position. And then you've got guys like Jordan Davis, Ndamukong Suh. We didn't mention him. Linval Joseph, just so many studs to rotate, especially along the interior of that defensive line. So not only do they have amazing starters, but they're super deep. Kevin, we'll start you here on the PFF grades. How does that? What picture does that paint for you?
Yeah, to me, this is part of the part of the metrics where I am like looking at Philadelphia as a really tantalizing pick for this game. I mean, the defensive line alone is the big thing. That's the big feather in the cap, and the pass rush. They're
real quick, I just realized we did not mention a key factor: the wide receivers for the Chiefs. We just glossed over that. So
that doesn't surprise me though.
You've got Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who had a fantastic AFC Championship game, 65.6, 69th amongst wide receivers. Juju is their highest rated wide receiver, 68.9. It's not horrible, but it's 52nd amongst 116 wide receivers. let's see who else they have on here. They have Justin Watson is who they have listed as their third wide receiver, 53, 111th out of 116 wide receivers.
Yikes.
But there is one guy who is not on this list, who has been cleared as being fully healthy, who I think could be the offensive X factor. That's Kadarius Toney.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney, he's got the potential to have a good game if he doesn't hurt his hamstring on the first series.
Hardman, we should say Hardman has been placed on IR. He is not playing in this game.
That's so sad.
And Juju,
He's such a stud.
Juju should play. But he is beat up. He had a knee injury in the AFC Championship game. So just that's worth considering.
Yeah, so I'll say this. So I think when Kansas City has the ball, I think obviously I'm watching Philadelphia's defensive line. You mentioned that the Chiefs' interior of their defensive line is their strength. So then the way to attack them is on the edge. And I think you're going to want to try to isolate Hassan Reddick with Wiley. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Wiley had a best friend in this game, and that best friend is going to be Noah Gray. I wouldn't be surprised if wherever you see Wiley line up, you just see right in his hip pocket, Noah Gray is right there just ready to double whoever's coming at him, because the offensive line of Kansas City is going to have their hands full enough with everybody else. They're not going to want to be always accounting for whatever's happening with Wiley. So they might just give him a buddy. They might just give him a blocking tight end and just say, we'll risk that one extra man running a route, or we'll send them on a couple of chips to keep them honest. But when the Chiefs have the ball, obviously Patrick Mahomes is going to be the magician that he always is. He's going to be the Houdini that he always is. I'm very excited to watch that. A player to watch on Kansas City side of the ball that we haven't talked much about. I'm expecting more good things from Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I think he showed some great ability to get open last week, and we've talked about it before. It's not like the Bengals have slouches at the cornerback position. So the fact that he was able to, Mahomes was able to escape, and then MVS was able to run those sort of like fire drill, scramble drill routes and get open. I'm looking for him to make a couple catches. I saw this is just for my bettors out there. I saw his over under was 2.5. I would bet the over on MVS 2.5 catches.
2.5 catches? Oh, that's definitely, they're going to have to lean on him, especially as well as he played in the AFC Championship game. I still think that's agreed. You need him to make some plays, but I just feel like, assuming he stays healthy, who's the X factor outside of Kelsey? What if the Eagles really came up with a game plan to limit him? It has to be as good as MVS can be. Kadarius Toney could be the difference maker. He's the X factor, that he has the playmaking ability to take a short pass and turn it into a 60-yard touchdown. MVS doesn't have that. MVS will be a nice possession receiver. He's got speed. Maybe Mahomes can hit him if he gets over the top, but that's it. Toney could be a guy that they could do gadget plays. He's the closest they have to Hill. He's no Tyreek. Let's just be clear, at least not at this point in his career. But he's the X factor because we haven't seen enough. What we've seen has been very tantalizing, and we know what his ceiling could be, what his potential is. I think that can be the difference maker. That and the assumed, like, Mahomes is going to do some magic. We just have to. That's just going to happen, right? But who's able to be on the other side of that magic? Do we have a Bucs playoff Super Bowl from 3 years ago where he's dropping, where Tyreek Hill is dropping passes and Travis Kelce is dropping passes, but it's Mahomes is being otherworldly. But do the guys that are on the other side of his passes actually catch the balls when they need to?
Yeah, at the beginning of the season, when Tyreek Hill went to Miami, everyone's like, well, how's this going to affect Mahomes? Now, Mahomes said, who? And figured out how to get the ball to whoever he could get the ball to. And those receivers were successful because of that. And I think Valdes-Scantling going to the Chiefs was a game changer for his career. Kadarius Toney going to the Chiefs was a game changer for his career. And that's because of who is under center. And I think that means a lot to that offense, because no matter who's on the other side of the ball, if you can catch and you can run, then Mahomes will throw it to you. And I think that's it. I mean, if we could pick 3 X factors, I'd pick all 3 of those receivers because of Mahomes, because he's able to get that ball out to them. If they can catch it, if they don't drop passes, they will succeed. And I think that has a lot. I think Marcus Epps on the Eagles side is a liability. I like Brian's point that the pass rush might cover that up, but with the receiver's ability to be quick and to get open and to get yards after catch, that is a liability on the Eagles side because you have 3 effective receivers and Mahomes knows how to get the ball out to them.
Yeah, I think there's a few specific things I'm looking at which by the way, I'm literally still making my decision in my head. I still don't have a solid pick. So it's like, okay, Hurts' ability to throw effectively, especially down the field. He is the one thing he has not been amazing at this year is against the blitz. Spags loves to blitz, but you can get burned bad. So it wouldn't surprise me if they test that early. We talked about the Eagles maybe wanting Sirianni and Shane Steichen maybe wanting to mask any potential deficiencies with Hurts as long as they can to not give that info over to Spagnuolo, Reed, and the Chiefs defense. But they might just throw blitzes at him early to make him prove it.
Yeah.
Either the blitz is able to slow down the run a little bit, or it'll force him to either see how well he's scrambling or see how well he's able to throw the ball down the field. I think that is crucial. If we find, and he's got 2 extra weeks to recover, this kind of injury that I think I've seen you need like 3 or 4 weeks. He's like 6 weeks removed. So there's a possibility he's fully healthy. We need to throw that out there. But if I'm Spags, I want to find that out early. And if I'm Sirianni and Steichen, I want to show that off early. If we see him in practice and he's hurling it, I want to show that. I want to threaten that deep. But if he's not able to do that, this game changes. I think the Eagles are going to run the ball no matter what. They'll be effective. They just are. You're not going to shut down the Eagles running game. But if you could keep them one-dimensional and keep it close enough so that Mahomes can do his thing, that is really at the top of my mind right now.
I think something that you brought up that I think is going to be a really interesting thing to track as far as when Philly has the ball. Let's not forget last week, 2 weeks ago, Hurts, yes, he was inconsistent when throwing the ball deep, but he did hit Devontae Smith deep down the field early in the game. And I think that is something to look out for. He had a couple nice throws to A.J. Brown. Some of them were on the sideline. Some of them were over the middle. He was inconsistent, no question. Like there was some that he sailed that you don't usually see him sail. There was
one in particular early on where A.J. Brown had 2 steps on, I don't remember which cornerback it was. It might have been Ward. And Hurts overthrew him by like 4 or 5 yards. It was bad.
So it's definitely important to note that the consistency wasn't there, but he was hitting them regardless. So it'll be interesting to see if that is because, 2 more weeks and you're saying that the nature of this injury is that usually it improves with that kind of time. Maybe the consistency is back, like I'm still leaning on trusting Hurts in this game to have a big throwing game. I think you kind of laid it out nicely, Brian, with the way that Kansas City's been playing lately, that to suggest that if they can get those heavy personnel packages and they can target those, linebackers that are bad at pass coverage, or they can isolate a good receiver on Jalen Watson, then I think that there's a chance that we have a huge day through the air for Jalen Hurts.
I want to add another really granular metric around that exact thing, Kevin. So the Chiefs allowed a 36.1% DVOA. So that's bad on defense when you allow positive DVOA on short middle passes, which ranked 30th in the NFL. Short middle, meaning A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. A lot of that is because linebacker Nick Bolton allowed 7.7 yards per pass in coverage with a 33% success rate.
Yikes.
That's his big weakness. So there is a world where they don't need to throw it deep. They just, you mentioned it early, Kevin, like just hit Hurts or hit Brown on some of these just slants. Test that short middle of this Chiefs defense. Test these linebackers who that is the glaring weakness. And maybe that's enough. I'd still like to see them because if you could test them deep too, especially with this young secondary, and you're hitting them over the middle and you already know you're going to have run success, then it's like, okay, the Eagles are cruising. But yes, I like that as also a very key thing to pay attention to is, are the Eagles able to attack that? I think the Chiefs will certainly be blitzing Hurts. Is he able to make the correct read, get the ball out accurately so that they can really take advantage of that, Anthony?
Yeah. Hurts' ability to hit that underneath route and to utilize the slants and the comeback routes and everything that AJ Brown is good at and Dallas Goedert, I think that the way that the Chiefs kind of allow short and middle passes to happen, Jalen Hurts is going to see that, and he's going to make it happen. He's going to see success, and he's going to keep doing it. You're going to have to make an adjustment. The Chiefs are going to have to make a lot of adjustments because I think that this offense has the ability to read what the defense is doing and play off that. And I think Jalen Hurts' accuracy is in question, but short, it's not. I don't think. I think his deep accuracy is in question. His short accuracy is not.
Here's another stat for you. Jalen Hurts had a 34.9% team offense DVOA without a blitz, 7.8 yards per play. When he was blitz, that dropped to 0.3%. So that's like a 34% drop with a blitz and down to 6.1 yards per play. That includes scrambles. So it is not a small thing. Hurts, the one thing he still needs to really improve in his game is his ability to overcome the blitz. We know Spags loves to blitz. The Chiefs blitzed. We're 13th in the league. They blitzed 24.7% of the time. It wouldn't surprise me if that number increases for this game, especially early on. I think we see the Chiefs defense get aggressive. I think they want to see how healthy he is. He wasn't good against the blitz even when he was healthy. That is also something to really pay attention to. Can he even get the short middle passes if he's making bad decisions with the blitz coming at him?
Yeah, because Kansas City has the horses, right? Like they have the guys to get there. And it's not just any slouches chasing Hurts down. Like he's extremely mobile and he's created a lot with his legs throughout the course of the season. But those are some guys that know how to pursue a quarterback, man. And so
I mean, you have Chris Jones. Chris Jones himself can take an entire offense.
Yeah, he can just, and if he plugs up the middle and just frees up those rushing lanes for, his other guys, I believe Frank Clark is still producing at a high level. That's an interesting variable. Hurts being so bad against the blitz is definitely something that they're going to want to mask, or they're going to want to, hopefully he can. And it's the big game, so he might be in his head. That's definitely. I like that point, Brian. I could definitely see Spags looking at that number. I mean, Spags doesn't need an excuse to blitz, but you give Spags an excuse to blitz, and he will send the farm, I think.
All right, before we make picks, and I do want to talk about, we'll have like some MVP predictions. I'll give you guys the floor to talk about some props. Kevin, you mentioned one earlier, 2.5 catches for MVS, which is, to me, insane. No, I'm not an expert on props. Kevin looks like he's raring to go, but Anthony, I'd love to hear from you as well. So Kevin, I'll give it to you first. What are some props that you really like for Super Bowl 57?
Yeah, so thank you for asking, because me and
he got all excited. He got all energized.
Trust me. No, I mean, that's just the cold brew kicking in. But yeah, I really like the MVS line. I think that's the one that I'm probably hammering the hardest. But I'm looking at these. There's some extremely low yardage lines for Philly's rotational running backs. Boston Scott is a 7.5 over/under line. How do you not think
7.5 yards? Wow.
That's 2 carries. And I foresee him getting potentially 5 to 7 carries. So I'm looking at the over on the Boston Scott line. I'm looking at the over on the Marquez Valdez-Scantling catch line. Mahomes' rushing line, last time I checked, was in the low 20s. I know that we're thinking the ankle is better, but I don't foresee him getting enough yardage to hit the low 20s. He had one scramble in the entire Cincinnati game, and the game was on the line. So I wouldn't be surprised if he hits the under on the rushing line.
What is Kenneth Gainwell's rushing line?
Last time I checked, it was in the teens.
Because I really like how he has played. Gainwell has been their most effective running back. I know Sanders had the 2 touchdowns, but Gainwell just seems like every time he gets the ball. There was another next gen stat I saw where he was like the second fastest in the league to hit the line. So he's just a guy who gets the ball and immediately hits the hole as opposed to dancing around or something like that. And he just has that burst. So that's curious at 20. I kind of like that.
Yeah, Gainwell over, and then just a couple quick ones. Goddard, 4.5 receptions. I like the over. Kelsey's touchdown line is set at 0.5, so I like the over. You know,
He only has one touchdown in the Super Bowl. He did not score against the Bucs. He scored in their first Super Bowl against the Niners. So
I don't think you're keeping him out of the end zone in this game. I feel strongly about it. I don't know. It's a gut feeling.
no, I think it's a pretty strong. It's a gut feeling that makes a lot of sense.
That's based on
a lot of logic.
But Anthony, you got some lines for us?
I do, and I have a very interesting line that nobody really talks about, and that is total players with the passing attempt. It's 2.5 in the Super Bowl. The reason I say this is trickery, is putting a play out where you toss it to your receiver and he passes the ball.
Oh, man.
That's considered a pass attempt.
That's risky business.
Over because I think that they're going to be taking those risks and be doing those plays, and 3 people are going to make a pass attempt.
Who's they? I'm assuming you're saying Kansas City, because I can't see Philadelphia doing that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Kansas City.
The Chiefs.
I could see some kind of trick play where we see somebody else make a pass attempt.
That's true. They do that.
I think Juju used to played quarterback at one point.
Yes,
in his
he did.
life.
And I'm not saying anything like Philly special, but maybe a jet sweep to pass the ball to Pacheco, or even pass to Mahomes. I mean, maybe Mahomes will get a reception. I think they're going to dig deep into the playbook and find some trick plays. Try some.
We saw Travis Kelce do that weird little rugby pitch out of nowhere.
I love that. I want more of that. It makes
is there an
so
over-under on how many times somebody's going to underhand shovel the ball to somebody? Because I feel like
that's a good one.
I would take the over in this game.
Be a good one. But that's a prop I wanted.
That's
to
a fun
point
prop,
out
Anthony.
It is it's a fun one. I like to.
I would take the under
put,
personally, just
take the under.
It's just random. Like I mean, it's super possible, but
it's so projectional as opposed to there's not a lot of precedent to point back to that.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Dallas Goedert, we just broke down how susceptible the short middle passes are for the Chiefs. Dallas Goedert over makes sense. 2.5 that some other guy, that's just it's complete luck.
It's just fun though. I like
fun.
those props.
It is. So maybe don't put a lot on that prop, but play it for fun.
The odds are 110, so it's they're low odds. Like it's not. It's not
you don't have
bad.
to put much in to win some money there.
Right.
Yeah. That's fun.
And then definitely Gainwell having a 19.5 for rush yards. That's low. And his last 3 games, he's exceeded that. And so I think that Gainwell will at least get 20 yards in this game. That's a prop I say bet on. And then Pacheco is 15.5. Which
receiving,
that
right?
one, yes, receiving yards. Sorry.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, receiving yards.
I like that over too, though.
With McKinnon in there, though, that he's actually been a lot more of their pass catching back than Pacheco is, so that's not as slam dunk as you think.
Pacheco kind of had a game though against Cincinnati though through the air. What do you have, 60 something yards through the air or something? Yeah,
he did have 6 or 7 targets in that game.
That's an interesting.
I also want to point out, because I think AJ Brown's gonna be targeted a lot, and like I said, I compared him to Calvin Johnson, which is hard to do as a Lions fan, but he's tall, he's big, he can really get the ball anywhere. Stafford used to just throw it up, and he found a way to catch it. I think AJ Brown has that ability. AJ Brown's over. Travis Kelce's touchdown over, because he always finds the end zone, and Gainwell's rushing over are my
love
props.
it.
I like that. Guys, before we actually make our picks, any other things you want to point out, whether it's stats or narratives or storylines, anything you think that we should take into consideration before officially making our Super Bowl 57 picks?
Yes. Special teams. We haven't really covered special teams.
There we go.
Sometimes special teams can decide a game, and both special teams on both sides of the ball are decent. Kicking, punting, returning, everything it's just so effective. Is it going to come down to special teams? If it does, which team is going to take it?
So let's look at just looking at DVOA, it's basically even. Philadelphia at 0.9%, that's good for 14th in the NFL. This is for the whole season. Kansas City at 0.3%, good at 16th in the NFL. So there's not a clear advantage there. I will say, historically, Harrison Butker has been a very good kicker. He's had some issues this season, but certainly made the kick when he needed to in the AFC Championship game. So is that even something to consider? The weather is not going to be an issue. The game's in Arizona. I don't see any real advantages, disadvantages. Maybe if they put Kadarius Toney back to receive punts, or maybe that's an X factor. Kevin, do you see anything in special teams?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think if we're looking at like the return games,
real quick, we mentioned on Legit Football that they're getting their punter back, the Eagles. So there's a special teams storyline for you.
That should be because he was a big difference from Kern.
Yes.
Sipos was a big upgrade from Kern, so that I'm looking at some punts inside the 20. I believe Sky Moore has been doing the returning for Kansas City. As far as I've seen, go ahead.
Well, no, I'm saying so he has not. He has actually had a lot of fumble issues.
That's what I was gonna say.
But came up with a huge return of his career. He's a rookie against the AFC Championship game to even get Mahomes in the position to do the whole flag out of bounds and whatever. So if Sky Moore can do that instead of the issues he's had. By the way, he was only returning the kicks because there was an injury, I think, to Tony. They had taken him out of returning punts. They only put him in because they had to, and he made the play of his career.
He's had some boom bust moments this season, and that Sky Moore is a fascinating offseason discussion because I've already said this before, but I have him on my dynasty team, and I need help because that's a roster spot. I don't know about Sky Moore. I'm questioning it, but I definitely
continue with that, and I'm going to bring up one last metric I'll bring up.
I could definitely see Sky Moore having an impact on this game, whether or not it's good or bad. That's TBD. Go ahead, Brian.
So, Anthony, by bringing up special teams, you reminded me that we didn't talk specifically about red zone offense, defense. There is another key metric here. So, Kansas City offense, number 6 in red zone DVOA. Philadelphia defense, number 10. Philadelphia offense, number 9 in red zone DVOA. Kansas City defense, number 26. Now, once again, this is the whole season, so they've played much better in the second half of the season. But we're trying to find any little crumb we can. That's my last bit. Anything else, guys, before we make our picks?
As far as narrative goes, the Kelsey brothers is going to be fun to watch.
True. Yeah. Thank you. We got to talk about the Kelsey brothers. Are you guys listening to the New Heights podcast yet?
I have not yet taken your recommendation.
Come on.
I will
If any week you have to, they normally only release one episode a week. They released 2 this week. One of them, they're interviewing their parents. They have their mom on, then they have their dad on.
It's a must listen.
The one from yesterday, they're on Radio Row. These are 2 guys in the Super Bowl on Radio Row doing a Super Bowl preview. That's just fun. Gold. It's an amazing show anyway. The fact that these 2 guys both got to the Super Bowl against each other, they talk about their experiences watching the others in their first Super Bowl. So Travis watched Jason win the Super Bowl back in 2018. Jason watched Travis win the Super Bowl against the 49ers and the emotions they had. And now they both have won one Super Bowl because Travis lost the second one. They both have won one. So somebody's going to jump. They talk about all of that. It is absolute gold. I recommend listening to at least one of those episodes, maybe the Thursday episode prior to Sunday. So yes, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Kelsey Bowl.
That's a big narrative there. I'm very eager to see Sirianni's performance and Hurts, because I'm leaning on experience in the big game as always, and Reed and Mahomes just right now currently they're like the heavyweight fighter in terms of experience. I mean, obviously in terms of metrics, we've determined that Philadelphia has the edge. But in terms of experience, Mahomes and Reed, this is their 3rd Super Bowl. They've been to 5 conference championships. This is Hurts' first playoff appearance, or first.
No, they were in the playoffs last year.
Last year, his first, stretch in the playoffs, his first playoff run, I should say.
Playoff run, yeah, extended run.
And Sirianni, he, correct me if I'm wrong, he was on Reed's staff at one point.
Yes.
So
there's there's a lot of overlapping.
He's got that fire, man. We've talked about Sirianni a lot on this podcast, and I believe Demon was saying he doesn't think Sirianni's a great coach. I am inclined to think he can win his way. I mean, geez, you can win your way.
I used to think that.
Coach.
I don't anymore. He has proven me wrong. I didn't like his press conferences. I didn't like how he started off as a coach.
Yeah.
But he has shown the ability to motivate this team, to make smart decisions, handing off play calling duties halfway through last season to Shane Steichen when that offense was dreadful. That to me shows a guy who can run an entire team, as opposed to ego doesn't get in his way. These players love playing for him. I read an article in The Athletic about how he has galvanized this locker room. I'm in on Sirianni at this point.
Yeah, and he's an upstate New York guy, which is the biggest feather in the cap that you can have for me. So I like Sirianni a lot. But so that'll be fun. But I think the hay is in the barn, boys. What do you guys think?
I'm gonna say one more thing, and then we're gonna start our picks. Anthony, you're gonna get to pick first, then Kevin, then I'll finish it up. If it was just about the absolute best player, in this case Mahomes, if it was just about experience and coaching, Tom Brady would not have lost 3 Super Bowls. that's the last thing I will say. Anthony, let's make our Super Bowl 57 picks.
All right.
Lock it up. Put it in stone. Who are you taking on Sunday?
I'm nervous because it's going to be a very good game. It's going to be very competitive. I think the Eagles have some things that they have to work out, but so do the Chiefs. So it's really about who's going to be exposed. Are they exposed early? Are they exposed late? It's going to come down to the fourth quarter for sure. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're tied up in the fourth quarter and it's a brand new game. But at the end of the day, that Kansas City offense and their ability to score points, they're going to find a way through that Eagles defense and even slow down the pass rush. I think that running on the Eagles, passing on the Eagles, it's going to happen. I have the Kansas City Chiefs by 9.
Whoa.
Wow. The spread, by the way, we haven't even mentioned the line is 1.5 Philly. So Philly -1.5. Anthony's like, not only are Kansas City going to cover, but they're going to win by 9 points.
He's like, it's a close game.
How are you nervous? If you're predicting a 9-point game, there should be no nerves involved in that.
I think the second score to go 2 possessions up will happen late, but I do think that they will score to put the Eagles behind. They're going to force the Eagles to have to chase points in near the end. And I mean, give
me an exact score then with your 9-point differential. Oh. We're going to actually put a score on this. We don't usually do that, but for this game we will. The over-under is 50.5, I think.
You're kidding.
Yeah. I want to say...
Back to betting, it's over.
Go the over there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. 24 to 33.
Plus 9 is 33.
Yeah.
I was going to say, just do the math. Unless you think it's going to be like 24-15.
No. 24 to
50.5, 50.5 is the over-under. All right, we've got Anthony picking the Chiefs to win 33-24. Kevin, who are you going to go with?
This is my big moment. All right, boys. So here's the thing. Like I said, the money's it's gone. Nothing I can do. Can't get it back. My money's on Philly, but on this podcast, my claim, the flag that I'm planting, is Mahomes and Reed. An experience payoff. And as a Bills fan, there's nothing I'd want more than to watch the AFC burn. I want Philly to win. I want to make that money. Can't get that money back. But I just think there's just too much there with Mahomes magic, Andy Reid, Spags. There's just too many variables. Chris Jones. There's just too many variables for me to overlook. And like I said, there's just so many things that tell me that I'm happy to be wrong. But I'm gonna go with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes over Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, and I'm gonna predict the final score to be 34-31 over, and that's that.
All right, so I will wrap us up by saying, oh, my instinct, my gut, my heart is saying you got to go Mahomes. Why didn't you put your own up there? By the way, if we're on YouTube for those just listening. And Anthony doing his producer thing while he's a guest, put the quote up across the YouTube screen, say Chiefs 34-31 Kevin, but you got to put your own up there too. All right, so you do that while
we can screen cap it.
So I'm building up to mine. If I'm picking in my gut, and I always used to pick just with my gut, it's the Chiefs. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Travis Kelce. It's Andy Reid. It just feels like that's going to be the story we're talking about on Monday. Which, by the way, we'll be back on Monday, hoping to have Jimmy Ray back. NFL stats. Maybe Zach Miller.
Let's go.
Your coffee shop football co-host. We'll have all them. When we're talking Monday, it feels like we'll be talking about another feather in the cap of Patrick Mahomes' career at only age 27. But I'm not going with the Kansas City Chiefs. I have used a certain formula throughout this season that helped me have a 67% win percentage, picking every game all year, 10-2 in the playoffs. I can't change now. I'm going to go Philadelphia Eagles 31-27. Definitely smashing that over there. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to come down to the end. It would not surprise me in the slightest if the Chiefs do win this game. Like I said, that's what my gut's telling me, but I have to stick with my formula. I was feeling Philly all for the last 2 weeks. And as much as I might feel that it might be Mahomes, I have to stick with my method. I'm going to be the one on this show to pick the Eagles 31-27. I think it'll be a fantastic game. I love that we're getting the best two teams in the NFL in the biggest game of the season. Let's go, boys. Super Bowl 57.
That's what I'm talking about, man. And win, lose, or draw, which draw's impossible. It's going to be a fun time. We're all going to be enjoying ourselves, catching some good commercials, hopefully making some money. Hopefully you throw down some bones on those props. So, I mean, like I said, the hay is in the barn, and this was just such a fantastic season for us all to do our podcast together and be on this journey together. It's been such a blessing, such a ride, and I'm grateful for it. I just wanted to say that to the listeners and to my brethren, that this has been a blessing for me. So I hope you guys feel the same way.
Well, the good thing is it's not goodbye. We're going to be back here on Monday and the rest of the offseason. There's so much to talk about in the NFL.
Only the football for now.
Kevin, has been fantastic having you on, and you're my co-host now. This journey is just beginning.
So
I want to shout out to Cato Luna for hanging out in the chat. He made his prediction. If there's anybody else in the chat that wants to throw out a prediction real quick, now's the time to do it. Takedo says, I got KC winning this game. Did not put a score, but will at least acknowledge that he's got the Chiefs. You guys are all on the Chiefs. I'm the one on the show picking the Eagles. I cannot wait. Anthony, this is, I think, the third Super Bowl we've covered together back from our pigskin party days, because we started in January of 2021. So right before that Super Bowl. So it's been an honor to continue to cover with you. Thanks, guys, for doing the show and continuing. We're not saying goodbye, guys. We'll be back on Monday. It's just feels like we're wrapping up the season. We're just trying to put a bow on it. Thank you to everyone who has listened to the podcast. Thanks to everyone who has watched this show on YouTube. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Tell your friends. We're putting out a lot of short form content from my man Kevin down here.
Yeah.
Not only on TikTok, but I don't know if you know this, Kevin. I'm putting it on YouTube as well and Instagram, so you can see those videos on any of our social media channels. Thank you for a great season of the NFL. I can't get enough of it. Yeah, I'm Brian McFadden. This has been the Legit Football NFL Podcast. Enjoy Super Bowl 57. We will see you on Monday.